when someone says they're on board, your expectation is that you're on board for everything. And that's not fair. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was still focused on, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this. How can we get better? How can I be better for them?
Yeah.
And
he's doing all these transformational stuff.
And podcasts and listen to all this other stuff.
Transform my basketball, and I'm going to be a better person for basketball. But what about, being a better person for me?
Welcome to Couples Unfiltered, a podcast where we talk about love, loss, relationships, and the journey. I'm Lionel Salisbury.
I'm Natalie Galley-Felsbury. We must first start out by saying we are not licensed therapists, and these discussions are solely based on our opinions and our life experiences.
Today, we're having a conversation with our friends, Bobby and Renee. We work together, we hang out, we get a chance to just have great conversations. So we want to share your conversation and your story with the rest of the world. So without any ado, want to welcome Bobby and Renee Huggins.
Thank you for having us. Thank you guys for having us.
Absolutely.
We're taking this session from the speakeasy in the house to the studio.
Yes. Same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start out with Renee. Tell us where you grew up and who were you before you and Bobby met?
Well, I grew up, I was born and raised in San Diego. I am the youngest, the baby of three. I'm the youngest. I have two older brothers. My older brother is 17 years older than I am. And then I have a middle brother who is 3 years older than I am. So my parents were originally from Cleveland, Ohio.
Right. Okay.
And my older brother was born in Cleveland, Ohio. And they moved out here mid 60s. My dad's job transferred him. So then my brother and I were born out here. And when I was being born, my brother was actually graduating from high school. And then 2 years after that, he went to the military. So we only really spent 2 years of my life really living with him, living in the house. So he went off, had his family and did his thing. So it was just my brother and I that were left at home. And my parents, grew up in a nice neighborhood, San Carlos in San Diego. And, we were the only Black family basically in the neighborhood. So that was a different upbringing. There weren't a lot of us. So childhood was great. Had its challenges due to us being the only African-American really family in the neighborhood. So I don't know, my parents they were great. My dad early on had an accident. And so he became a stay-at-home dad. And my mom went to work full time. So he did all the carpooling. He did all the pickups from school. He did the grocery shopping. He did the ironing. He did the cooking. So,
but did your mom do that the first 17 years?
She did it. Yeah. She did it. And then, basically up until he had his accident, I think I was in, early elementary. I don't remember the time frame. I kind of blocked a lot of that out. And his accident caused him to stay at home. He had his knee was fused, so he became disabled. So he stayed at home. So that was a real difficult time because now he, man of the house, had to be stay-at-home dad and do all the things that my mom was doing. So, which caused, him some anger and some depression. So, other than that, it was just a basic childhood. My parents, they were married until they passed away for almost 60 years, 50-something years. And, they had their ups and downs. So it was a good basic childhood, I guess. Yeah. So I'm here. I can't complain. I think they did okay raising me. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah. Well, Bobby and Clinton, but we go by Bobby.
Yeah. Because I'm a junior, yes. Yeah.
So same thing. Who were you? How'd you grow up, and who were you before you and Renee met?
So I was born in LA, West 59th Place. It was right on the border between Watts and Compton.
Wow.
And that was during the time where all the mixture of different races all lived in the same area. So you had, the next across from us was a Jewish family, and the next across was an Italian family, and so, but there also were actors. Actually, across the street from us was the San Francisco Grady from San Francisco.
Oh, no way.
He lived right across the street from us. So it was a cool. But my dad just got a job in Northern California, and so he decided to take and move the family to Northern California. I was about 5 or 6. And so we moved to Northern California, and it was funny, the neighborhood we moved into was very suburban. And it's South San Jose, actually more farmy than anything, because you weren't far from the farms and everything else. And so where I grew up was very similar to that, was that I had Italians and all sorts, because they were all engineers. My dad was an engineer. And so he moved, the company he worked for was Hewlett Packard or something like that, way back in the day. And so we lived in that area, and I grew up with my brother and I and my mom. My dad did a lot of traveling, so he wasn't home a lot. My mom did most of the raising, so she was, mom and dad. She was the one who disciplined 2 boys who quickly outgrew her. It didn't take her long, and so she kept it down and made sure that we were, behaving ourselves and did what needed to be done. But we grew in a great neighborhood. We played street football. We had basketball. It was kind of the suburban life that you would think of. My brother is 2 years younger than I am. So basically I had a group of friends who were all my age, and he had a group of friends, and we would play football where he had 22 kids outside playing football, 11 on 11. So it was a great growing up. It was the 70s. So most of the men were working, and all the women were staying at home, and so the women were out there looking after the boys, and they all mothered each of the kids. So if somebody got out of line, it was how they dealt with it. Like, they didn't go tell your mother what you did; they handled it themselves. So
I remember those days.
Yeah, so it was a lot of snatch and grab. Whatever's available. It doesn't matter who kid it is. It doesn't matter. It was everybody had the right. It took a village. Yeah, especially when they all. Yeah, when they all. And
you went to Archbishop Mitty?
I went to Archbishop Mitty, but I started at Santa Teresa High School.
Okay.
And I was a horrible student, and so I wouldn't go to class. And my mom quickly found out that I was going to graduate, and so they scraped together some money, because we didn't come from money, but they scraped together money and said, all right, we're going to send you to this Catholic school, because I went to Catholic school 4th grade, and then they sent me to this other Catholic school, Archbishop Mitty, which had nuns and priests who walked around with, rulers and bats, and, didn't have any problem with, what do they call it? Some kind of discipline. Yeah. Some kind of discipline. Yeah. So we had a priest who walked around with a wiffle ball bat, and he would just hit the athletes in the back of the head, even if we wouldn't do anything, because he knew that we eventually would do something that would deserve the, So yeah, I went to Archbishop Mitty, and it's funny because if I hadn't worked out there, my dad told me that I was going to go to Army Navy Academy.
Oh,
wow. That was going to be the next stop.
Oh,
and he was hoping it wouldn't, because he wanted to move to Carlsbad anyhow. And he wanted to send me there, and I would have ended up graduating from there. But, my dad eventually got tired of traveling, and he stayed home. And we got lucky because he started coaching me in all the sports I wanted to play and everything else, my brother and I. So we got to have that second part of our childhood with him coaching us and everything else.
Yeah,
so it was really cool. He didn't know anything about sports. He only played softball his whole entire life. So he was reading books about how to play soccer and what that meant, and coaching basketball. He didn't know anything about that. So it was cool growing up with him.
So I got to mention something. So you mentioned Army Navy Academy, and that's what brought all of us together. We all worked together at Army Navy Academy. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah. That's actually, I didn't know that.
I forgot to mention that part, and it's
I wasn't to mention.
Yeah, I wasn't the best kid in the world, especially academically, and my dad had been familiar because he had been stationed down in San Diego for a little bit of his time, because he was retired Air Force. And so he knew the area a little bit, and he knew about Army Navy Academy. He had done his research. When my mom said, "Oh, Bobby's not going to graduate high school," and he said, "Well, that's not going to happen. So let's figure out what our other options are." And Catholic school was the first one He says, well, let the nuns beat the crap out of you. And that doesn't work. We have grown men who can do the same thing. Yeah. So,
right?
Yeah.
And then one day you're going to have to teach there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I guess what you get. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Yeah, that school's been there for like 115 or so years
Is it?
now.
Is it
Yeah,
at
it's
that point?
150
Yeah.
years, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's been a threat for quite a while
Yeah.
for a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of
They use
families.
it all the time. Yeah.
So you all obviously were in the San Diego area at the same time when you met each other. So how old were you ish when you met?
Oh gosh, we were old souls.
I was 30,
I was 20. I was 26. You were 30. You were 28.
28, yeah.
When we met. We met on what everybody now Tinder and all that. Well, before that was even thought of, we were the OGs of the dating services. We met on one-on-one connections. And so at the time, back in the 90s, there was live links and one-on-one connections.
Yes, I remember live links.
and the commercials.
right on beat.
Late
Yeah.
night. Yes. So I was on, me and my cousin, I was going out with my girlfriends and we were, partying, and I was like, I'm done. I'm tired. I was working a couple jobs, and I think I was taking some classes, going to school. And I was like, it's just getting old. I'm getting too old for this.
And wait, how old were you?
I was 26.
Okay, so you guys are how many years
2,
apart?
yeah,
Yeah.
2.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I was mid-20s to about that time, and I was like, I'm done. I've partied out. I have no more clubs, no more partying. The dating scene was just getting bad. So my cousin and I, we started doing the one-on-one connection and live links. Well, live links was the one I was on most of the time.
Right.
And I went on some dates, and it just...
Now explain what live links is. Was it just explain how that goes, because comparing things now.
Yeah, everybody's like live. So there weren't
The clean version,
any computers. There was no swipe left, swipe right. You had to call on the phone. So it was all done over the phone. You had no idea what the person looked like. You had no idea of what they, initially sounded like. There was nothing. So you would call in, you would leave a, hi, this is Renee. I like blah, blah, blah. You tell them about yourself, what
So they
you're
had a
looking
mailbox.
for.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a voice message.
Yeah.
Really a voice
You have
message.
like a code or something.
A
you
code,
put in
yeah.
and-
Oh.
So
And
you would leave messages.
Yeah.
So you would leave messages, but initially you would set up your profile, and you'd have to leave a message about yourself.
Okay.
And then guys would call in and listen to all these different messages, and you could put in your criteria. I had no kids at the time. I had no kids.
Surprisingly, everybody had no kids. Yeah.
Until we met.
Yeah, until we met them. And then you have 4 kids right now, right next to you. I don't know how you thought. You had
Crawling
no
all
kids.
over
I know.
Those are my cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they say too.
So, so I set up my profile, and I was going on dates, and it was getting bad. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I had checked it. I was on one-on-one connection. So then I went on, I was live links. Then I went on one-on-one connection. It was actually where he left a message, and it wasn't one that I was on a whole lot. So he left a message, and I listened to it, and I was like, I said I was done. No more. So I wrote his phone number down on a piece of paper, and this was like on a Friday night. And then I think, I don't know, Saturday, Sunday, Monday had gone by, and I was like, maybe. He sounded like he was a nice guy, but I threw the paper away. So I had to get the piece of paper, an old school, pencil, and I had to get the imprint.
Doing a Mission Impossible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did.
Put
So
up
I'm
with
like,
lights.
and I got the number from the imprint, and I got the number right, and I called him. And so we started talking, and he sounded like a really nice guy. And, we talked, for I don't know, weeks, months.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Or
a couple weeks, a month. And then we finally decided we were going to, meet each other.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. And that's how, the dating, the blind date. So we were the OGs of the blind date.
People need someone that they can communicate with and someone that they can talk to. So at this moment, I'd like to just point people in the direction of our sponsor, BetterHelp. In life, we all face challenges, especially in our relationships. That's why we're excited to talk about the importance of understanding power dynamics in relationships today.
Now let's talk about power couples. According to Oxford Languages Dictionary, power couples are defined as a couple consisting of two people who are each influential or successful in their own right. But let's not limit this definition to just fame and fortune. Power couples also thrive on mutual respect, support, and effective communication. And that's where BetterHelp comes in.
With BetterHelp's online therapy platform, you and your partner can gain valuable insight into your relationship dynamic. Whether you're struggling to find balance, navigating conflict, or simply seeking to strengthen your bond, BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who specializes in helping couples just like yours.
Imagine having a dedicated space where you and your partner can explore your feelings, address underlying issues, and develop healthier ways of relating to each other. BetterHelp offers convenient, confidential, and affordable therapy sessions, all accessible from the comfort of your own home.
So, if you're ready to take your relationship to the next level, consider signing up with BetterHelp today. Because when you understand the characteristics of power relationships and work together to cultivate a supportive partnership, there's no limit to what you can achieve as a couple.
To learn more and take the first step towards a stronger, more fulfilling relationship, click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/couplesunfiltered for 10% off your first month of therapy with a licensed professional. That's betterhelp.com/couplesunfiltered. Thanks again, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. So you guys dated for a couple months, and then at what point did you get engaged?
We dated for, so we met each other. We met at the mall where I was working at. When we walked up, I was coming up the escalator and he was standing over by the bookstore. And we had already kind of said, if we don't like each other, or if we kind of see each other and we're like not feeling it and we make eye contact, we would just kind of do, a little thumb motion, like, no. And we would kind of, go the opposite direction.
Literally that
Turn around
conversation
the
didn't
escalator.
happen.
And y'all didn't see each other prior to?
No, we had never
Okay.
seen
That
each
is the
other.
first
Yeah,
time.
because there's no internet, there's no
There's
pictures,
nothing.
Right, no
There's
pictures.
nothing.
phones.
Okay.
She described herself. I asked her to describe herself, and she said, like Oprah. And we're like, okay. I don't know. I didn't, for me, she's Oprah. Okay. And then she said, describe yourself to me. And I
You said a
said,
mutt.
I look like a mutt. And I thought about it later. I go, well, that doesn't sound great. And then she goes, I said, well, people say I look like this actor who's on soap operas.
Oh, yeah.
Was it The Young and the Restless?
Yes.
Christian St. John.
St. John or something like
Yeah,
that.
I
And
remember
people say it like that. And so she goes, oh, really? And so I go, okay, I'm setting myself up for
You're like a cross between a mutt and
Christian. So somewhere in between that, it's like I look like the Earth and the Moon. Somewhere between them, you'd be more vague. Yeah.
So, we made a date. We were going to meet at Mission Valley Mall where I used to work. I worked there. And so before I went to work, we were going to meet. So I go up the escalator and I'm looking around and I'm thinking that, I'm looking beautiful and the wind's blowing and I have this beautiful smile on my face and I'm ready to meet him. And
absolutely not. Complete opposite.
Later on his end, he was like, you had like a resting, bee face when you were walking up because I was kind of in a rush and I was, I guess, looking around. I wasn't smiling. And then he said, once he saw me.
Yeah, once I saw her, because she's coming up and she looked mean, like she wanted to cut somebody. And I'm like, so I walk in and there's a comic book shop to my right, and I see her coming up because I kind of know what she's looking like, what she's wearing. She told me what she's going to wear. So I slid behind into the comic book shop and I'm peeking over a stormtrooper, like, oh my, I don't think this is going to be a good idea. Because she looks like she's not happy to go anywhere. And then a friend of hers, because Renee knows almost everybody in San Diego, and so someone got her attention, and she started smiling, and her face completely changed.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, this is a person who had, I'm attracted to this, not what I saw the first time. And so, I moved from the stormtrooper, and I think, then she saw me then, but yeah.
I do remember when I first, encountered your presence. It was a little, I was a little intimidated to kind of just make small talk because you looked like you were all business. Not that I wouldn't put the B in there, but it was more business face, right? Resting business face.
That is so good. Business face.
Resting business face.
I got to remember that one.
Yes.
Honey, you got your business face on right now. Well, I'm trying to be kind about that.
But then when I did see her smile, I was like, oh, she's cool. She's just, it's just different when you realize.
I'm always thinking.
Yeah.
I'm always in motion or doing something. So
I remember people used to ask me, like, what you mad about?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not mad. I look bad.
Yeah.
Get to see the smile.
I'm smiling.
I know, right?
This is my smile face.
So we met. We had lunch at Ruby's Diner, and we hit it off. It was nice.
Now, what year was this?
That was in 1999.
99.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
1999.
So 1999, and then you guys were, oh my gosh, there was something that happened. I know that you told us the story about something that happened in between dating and when you realized that you were going to marry her. You went on a trip.
Yeah. So I was in the process because I went to school late, and so I was graduating at 28. And
So now this is 2000.
no, this is 99.
Okay, yeah, June.
This is not. This is in. So I'm about to graduate, and my friends had already planned a trip for us to go backpacking in Europe. We were going to hit Spain and Italy and things like that. And first thing, I knew I had already a feeling about her because her and I just got along really well.
And
we had
plus, I will tell you this because I was nice enough because I felt really bad for
get to
him.
that point, but
Well, let me tell you, I felt really bad for him because he was working several jobs and didn't have any money. And so I felt like he didn't. I said, let me give him $1,000 so he could go. And I also bought him some shoes that he
weighed 50
drug
pounds,
around Europe because they were steel toe shoes. And I was
Because
trying
he was backpacking.
Yes, backpacking,
And I
yes.
wanted to make sure he had them.
I literally lost 20 pounds carrying those shoes around.
He
with me.
did. He looks good,
My
too, when he
calves
came
were
back.
huge. I was like the reverse Popeye.
He did. They were.
Calves all
Calves all
big.
huge. And
Yeah.
a little upper body just moving around like
I was
Gollum.
trying to help him out. So I bought
Yeah.
him these heavy shoes and a backpack, and I gave him some money, and he went off to Europe, and he had a good time. And
So I'm in Europe, and so my friend and his wife they had a dinner date at the Eiffel Tower, and so she had planned it all and everything else. Well, he got sick, and she goes, "Well, I don't want to lose this reservation. Just come with me." And I said, "Okay, I'll go with him." And so I went with her, and we're sitting at this restaurant, and she asked me because she was of all our friends, she was the only female in the group, and our friends who are married. And so she's always asking me, like, "Are you seeing anybody?" Because she doesn't want to be alone basically anymore, being the only woman. And I looked at her and I said, and this was the first time I voiced it. And I said, "Yeah, and I think I'm going to ask her to marry me." And she got all excited because she was the only one who knew that I had decided that. And that was only 4 months in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 4 months in, I knew that I was in love with her, and that I knew I wanted to marry her. Yeah. Yeah,
I made a good impression. See, even my resting bee face.
Yeah. Once you get past it, yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, okay. So you guys go through the wedding, and you guys didn't have children, obviously. So it was just a traditional wedding, both sides of the family, everybody attended.
Yep.
But then what we know is that your wedding was kind of the last hurrah before the chaos began.
And the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The many storms. Storms, but yes, before the chaos. So after we got married, we a year after that, or 2 years after that, a year after that, we bought a house. We moved up to Wildemar.
Now, you got engaged as soon as you came back. How soon after did you get married?
So a year later.
So a year later.
So February 14th. So basically almost a year and a month after we met, we got engaged. February 14th. And so then a year later in June, a couple months, we got married June 30th.
Okay.
So we got married. We were still living in our apartment, and we were like, let's see if we can buy something. So we were going to buy this little bitty box in Mira
It was about
Mesa.
as big as this.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was
Like a
maybe like
studio.
400 square feet,
Mm.
one closet. And so we go and we look at it and we're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. We'll wait. So then we waited for a little longer, and then we just were like going. We love to go to open houses and look at model homes and stuff. That was our cheap, free dates.
I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a struggling couple. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and we would just like, go have fun. We would go look at all the model homes and dream.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up. We would go to Temecula, Marietta, and just look up there. And so we ended up meeting a realtor. And he took us to a house up in Wildemar. Well, at the time, the market was so hot that people were buying houses sight unseen.
Mm.
So he took us to a house.
It wasn't even on the market yet.
Yeah, it was sold up underneath us. We're sitting in front of the house, about ready to go in, and like, sold.
Mm.
So he took us to this other house, and we ended up buying this one. It was a little 4-bedroom, 2-bath, our little starter house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we ended up settling in Wildemar, which was an hour and some change from
Army
Navy. And then I worked in Serrano Valley, so it took me an hour and 45 minutes to get to work. So we lived up there. We bought the house, and we didn't have any kids yet. I did have somebody who came in and lived with us that we were trying to help, and ultimately,
Bobby's shaking his head over there.
Ultimately, it didn't work. They ended up going. She had 4 girls, and so they ended up going back to their home. We were trying to help them out and get her on her feet, and so they ended up going back to their home in San Diego. And I found out I was pregnant.
Well,
during that time.
there's a little gap between that because she found out she was pregnant because she had won tickets to see LL Cool J, and she went to New York. And I said, okay. And then she went with her friend, her best friend. They went to New York and they watched the concert and everything else was great. And then she comes back, and I walk into the bathroom one day and here's the strip. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you just came back from LL Cool J. You're bragging that you met him. And I said, if the baby comes out, licking his lips, I'm going to punch him in the throat because the timing doesn't work and you're a huge fan. You just, we're trying to get pregnant. Also, you now pregnant?
We're trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
She came back
It's pregnant. And I go, I wasn't there. So, I can do some math.
I'm trying to get a setup.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, it was really cool because the way she set up, and I didn't really, because I didn't have kids before. So she puts this thing in there and I go, what does this line mean? I don't have no idea what it means. And they're all excited. And so, that was our first one. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So we got pregnant. And I was fine during the pregnancy. I was outside. I think the day I went into labor, I was outside washing windows and stuff. And the Laker game was coming on that night, and he went and got carne asada burritos. So we're sitting on the couch, and I'm kind of breathing heavy. And my dad calls, and he was just like, he's talking to me, and I'm kind of breathing, I guess, heavy. And he's like, "Why are you out of breath?" Well, my mom was right next to him, and so my mom got on the phone, and she's like, "You're in labor," and I'm like, she's like, "You're having contractions." I'm like, "I'm fine." So she's like, "Go to the hospital. Go to the hospital."
And how pregnant were you at this time?
I was 23 weeks and 4 days pregnant on that Sunday when this was happening. And so, and I was born a premature baby. So my mom knew all of her kids were premature.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born at 24 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day,
Yeah, news articles written about her and
there was a
everything.
news article.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she's telling me to go, and I'm like, yeah. So we're watching the Laker game, and we're,
It was a good game.
and eating burritos. And so
We're all Lakers fans.
Yeah,
right?
we're Lakers fans.
So that was about
Okay.
3:00, in the day or whatever. And so by 9:00, I was like, and I had called and told the hospital what was happening. So I called, and they said, well, come on in. And so I'm like, yeah. So let's finish eating our food and watching the Laker game. So I'm like, I think we need to go. So we get in the car, and we're driving from Wildemar, and I had to go all the way down to UCSD Hillcrest down in San Diego.
Which was like how long?
about
in minutes, like in California.
An hour and 45 minutes
right?
away.
Everything is
Well,
in
it was
minutes.
a Sunday, so
Yeah.
it was an hour and 45 minutes, and we had never been there before because we hadn't done any classes. We were not in a spot where we knew what we're supposed to be planning, so we didn't have time to drive. And she has a high pain threshold, so I'm driving, set the cruise control 35, thinking, oh, well, I guess we'll just take our time going down there, listen to music and everything else. And all of a sudden she just grabs my arm like in a steel grip and she goes, you might want to speed up. And that's when I knew that something was a little bit more, because if she's in pain and she's let me know she's in pain, then there's her pain level went from a 5 to like an 8.
So we went to the wrong hospital. We went to La Jolla UCSD because that's where my mind went. That's where most of my doctor's appointments were. Went there. They're like, we have no labor and delivery. And I'm like, get back in the car. We go down. And I was born at Mercy Hospital, which is literally 2 minutes away from UCSD Hillcrest Hospital. My mind, I said, Bobby, turn here. We went to Mercy Hospital. I get out. We go in. And they're like, there is no doctor here. Your doctor's not here. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, it's at UCSD. They shouldn't have let me go, but they let me go because I was so close. So we get to the hospital. By this time, my, bag is bulging. I'm in complete labor. I'm like, and I'm like, make it stop. And luckily my doctor was on call that day. So he was just like in pure, utter disbelief. And, he rushed in, C-section. Bobby was in the room, and when they took Chris out, and I was...
Well, he said that if we didn't do it, they couldn't stop labor at that point. And he was honest with it, which we really appreciated, but he said there's a 10% chance that Chris at the time, we hadn't named it yet, but a 10% chance that he wouldn't survive. And that every hour, I think, raised the percentages that once he came. And, he was... Everything happens for a reason. We were very blessed that he happened to be on call that night, because he's one of the few doctors, and I think in the hospital or in the world or whatever, that could do the pregnancy that do the delivery that he had performed, which is basically, because she was out, she couldn't see it. I'm watching it. And the nurse told me this, because they wheel her out. I'm sitting in a room, just like all those movies with the guys in a room, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm putting on things I don't know how they button or anything else. So a nurse comes in and is helping me, and she's trying to get me to calm down. I don't know what anything. And by this time, it's almost 2 a.m, right? It's 2 a.m. So from 3 o'clock to 2 a.m, we're going through all this. And she's trying to get me to focus. I'm kind of in a daze. I'm tired. And I said, what's going on? And she said, well, he's going to do a procedure that's probably going to give you the best chance for your baby to survive, which is basically taking
him out
of the sack and then placing him down gently, then opening the sack and then having the baby be delivered. I go, is that even possible? She goes, well, you're lucky because he's one of the few that does these things. And so I'm watching this whole thing and I'm like amazed. It was, he was just like, he was a surgeon. I was watching like a magician just levitate something, and he takes Christopher out and opens up the amniotic sac, and it just parts like a flower. And there he is. And I don't get to see him, because as soon as he does that, they whisk him away and put him into
the incubator. And he's got no eyebrows, no fingernails, no
he's not
see through.
Yeah.
He's still baking.
Right. Well, the goal, I think, is 25 weeks is the best chance of survival. And he was 23.
Yeah. So he weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces. And so he's in the hospital for 3 months. For 3 months.
Wow. So you guys have this newborn in the hospital for 3 months. You guys are still going. Were you in the hospital with him back in the day? Were you able to stay there?
Well, I was only just for to heal I had a C-section, so just for the couple of days, and then after that we were back and forth driving every day. You guys were driving hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes.
And did you? Well, obviously you weren't working, but so you have this newborn and he's healthy, thank God, but he's not ready to go home, and then something else happens. Where your parents start getting sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think my brother was the first.
Yeah.
No, your dad.
Yeah. My dad got sick first. He had stomach cancer. So we, we're dealing with that. And my mom was having some health issues. She always had some stomach issues. So, and we're kind of dealing with her and that. And then his brother, shortly after my dad got sick, was diagnosed
with a brain tumor.
Okay.
And at the same time, my dad was also diagnosed with what's the cancer that most men get? Prostate.
Oh, okay.
And so my brother had surgery, but my brother and my dad were then going to the hospital back and forth to do chemo. And then her dad at the same time was
Stomach cancer.
stomach cancer.
Mm.
And
And
then,
we're trying to maneuver all that as we're still going back and forth to the hospital to see our own son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness.
But you guys are still living in the
Wildemar.
brand new house.
still living in Wildemar.
Okay.
So, we get Christopher home, everything's good, fine, dandy. So, no events in 2 years, and then I get pregnant with the twins.
No LL Cool J concert.
No
It was
LL.
just straight up, she was home. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get pregnant with the twins, and my parents by this time, they were living in San Diego. They finally moved up to Marietta to be close by.
Okay.
Us because we had Christopher, and then they were both, getting older, and I was the only one left in San Diego, so they moved up to Marietta, and they were also watching Chris while I was working.
Mm.
So I get pregnant, and we go in the first time to confirm the pregnancy, and it's 1, and then 4 weeks later we go back for our second visit, and they're getting the screen, everything ready, and we're kind of looking at the screen, and we see 2 blurbs, and then finally the nurse looks at the technician, and she goes, "Oh, you're pregnant with twins." So you're right. By this time we're shocked. He's just like, "What the heck?" And we're
I
like,
hit
"Wait,
the
there was
wall.
1." And so she's like, "No, you're pregnant with twins. They're identical twins." And so, I'm like laughing and crying, and I call my mom once the nurse leaves, and I'm like, "What do I do?" She's like, "What do you mean, what do you do?" She's like, "You'll be fine."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "I'm gonna have 2 kids, 3 kids under 2.5." And I'm like, "What do I do?" She's like, "You'll be fine. You do it." So it was pretty much a easy pregnancy for the most part. We at 20 weeks they thought I was going to have to actually abort them because they thought I had something going on with the pregnancy. And so I had to do an amniocentesis where they stick this long needle in your stomach and take out the fluid.
Oh, by that time you were like almost.
I was 20 weeks at that time.
But you're also in your 30s.
I was
Yeah.
at that time I was 32.
Okay.
Yes. And so everything ended up being okay. They were also premature, had them at 28 weeks.
Okay. A little
And
better.
So, little better. I'm doing better.
Yeah.
We're getting through.
They're full grown. Yeah.
Chris is good. He's 2.5. I got the twins. Everything was going well. We still were living up in up
Wildemar.
north, so we were still going back and forth because they were in the hospital for a month. And by this time, my parents were getting sicker. My mom got sick. She was having a lot of gallbladder issues. My dad had lung cancer. And so he already had 1 lung removed. And so we looked at each other and going, we need to make sure they're okay. So we had decided, although we lived close enough, to move in together with them so I could actually really take care of my parents and make sure they were okay.
Okay.
So we had sold our house. They sold their house. We moved into a rental, and we were building a house, waiting for the house to be built. And so my mom was going back and forth, in and out of the hospital, trying to figure out what was going on with her stomach. My dad he was doing okay. He was actually, he was doing good.
Yeah,
He was doing good. And he was going out to the site, looking at the house all the time and making sure it was okay and taking pictures. And so we finally, right before we moved in, my mom ended up going into the hospital. So as we were moving into the house, it was just my dad and us and the 3 kids. And so we moved in. My mom ended up going into the hospital, and they ended up taking out her gallbladder while she was there. Well, we had been in the house, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. My dad really started getting sick, and his dad was sick. Again.
They diagnosed, this time wasn't prostate, it was, I can't remember what type of cancer he had, but they diagnosed, it wasn't stomach, it was something else. But
he ended up,
he was also then in the hospital, and he actually had a heart issue, and then the cancer showed up, and so he's going back and forth with the chemo on that part, and then her dad gets sick, and we think that he has pneumonia.
because he was just like, he couldn't catch his breath. And I remember just like, Dad, relax, trying to calm him down. So finally one day I was like, I got to take him to the ER because he started to panic. And so crazy thing, that day my mom was going to come home that day. So we brought her from the hospital. So we brought her home from the hospital. that same day, I ended up taking my dad to the hospital. So mind
it's-
you,
Yeah.
Oh,
they
man.
had never spent one night together in that house.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it was 20 days. We were 20 days in. So 20 days finally in. Take my mom to the hospital, get her home from the hospital, take my dad to the hospital. And then the doctor looks at me and goes, your dad is really sick. And so then they stayed there for a couple days, and we ended up taking him down to San Diego. And that's when they diagnosed him, saying that his cancer had gone to his other cavity, to his other lung.
A different hospital in San Diego?
We went to Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
And so my mom was also sick, and they got her biopsy back from when she came home. So my dad, I go to the upstairs to my mom's appointment while my dad's laying in the hospital bed, basically dying. Go to her appointment upstairs on the 5th floor at Kaiser, and they diagnosed her with gallbladder cancer and says that she's got, less than a year to live. So my dad never knew my mom was sick. And so he ends up passing away in the hospital.
Wow.
So, and this time he had graduated from school. I was in school to get my degree. He is getting his master's. So we were, 3 kids. We're both in school. We're doing our thing, taking care of parents. And he passes away. My mom, we take her home. We do all the funeral arrangements, and we get her settled. And by this time now she's sick, and so she's basically at home dying. And so I find his dad is now basically this was in April.
Mm-hmm.
His dad dies in August of that same year.
Wow.
Found out I was pregnant right before his dad was in the hospital. We tell his dad, and he was excited for us, but he never got to meet Nick because he passed away in August.
Oh, man.
And Nick was born in January.
Yeah. So now we've got 2 parents that have passed away. We've been in this house, a few months, and we take care of my mom. Nick is born in January. My mom actually, March 17th was her anniversary of her death. So she dies March. So 11 months apart. So within 11 months, we had 3 deaths, a birth.
Yeah.
We moved into a house, and we're looking at each other going, oh my God, what do we do?
So you guys moved into bought the house so that you guys can all be together, so you can kind of consolidate your finances and take care of your parents. But then now you have no income except for your own again, and you're in a house. Now are you guys...
We went from 4 incomes that contributed to the house
yeah.
because she was working because her mom was staying home with
the girls. So free babysitters.
Yeah. So, and they had the retirements and everything else. And then we went from 4 incomes. And then when her mom gets sick, Renee said, we're about mom. And so she stopped working. And then we went from 4 to 1 income, which is mine.
So we're in this 4,400 square foot, beautiful home in Winchester. And we're trying to refinance and we're sending hardship letters to do all these wonderful things, and nothing was working. So
this is 2004, 2005, and we all know what was happening during
approaching.
Yeah.
So you guys are living in the home, and do you stay for a while, or do you try to make it, or do you?
We tried to make it, and then we were trying to refinance and do a hardship and get our payments lower, and it just it wasn't working.
No.
And so and so we decided, we looked at each other. My brother lived in Texas, and we were like, let's get a fresh start.
Yeah.
So we moved to Texas for a year.
Wow.
And so
it wasn't supposed to be for a year.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be for like
long term.
That's what we were saying. Pack up the kids and
we made this is going to be our stay place.
And our kids were like, okay, let's go. So we all packed up. We drove 2 cars to Texas. We found a rental house. We lived literally like across the street from my brother. Best time. It was wonderful. I love Texas.
What part of Texas was this?
Fort Worth.
Okay.
So he was teaching. He didn't get a permanent job, but he was a long-term sub at a high school.
Okay.
And then they were going to hire me long-term. But just like the rest of the country, the housing market hurt Texas just like everybody else. And so they actually had to start getting rid of teachers because budget cuts. And so the thing is, last one in is first one out. And I was one of the last people. And so we're looking at each other. Meanwhile, and also in Texas, this is where I'm.
He almost died.
I got sick and I fell down in the snow because I'm from California. I didn't know what snow was.
Black eyes.
Black eyes. And I'm all like, look at me. Oh, and then
he's pulling in the trash can.
Yeah, and then boom.
Wow.
And so I'm at the school one day and I'm telling Renee, I call and I go, God, I'm having a hard time breathing. And I'm going back class to class, and every time I get to a classroom, I'm out of breath. And all the students are looking at me, what's wrong, Mr. Huggins? And other teachers are teaching while I catch my breath. It took me almost 10 minutes to catch my breath to be able to do anything. And once I was standing, I was fine. At the day end, I told Renee, I want to go see the doctor who had diagnosed me with what I had before. And she looked at me, she did a couple of tests. She just looked at me and she goes, you need to go to the hospital and have some x-rays done.
This is the doctor you went to?
Yeah, because he actually got sick, and then he was at home throwing up and all this stuff for, like a week. And so then he had slipped right before that. He got sick. So he slipped and he got sick. And then he can't breathe, and they sent him to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get to the hospital and they take me right in because I have to walk in. And I can't breathe even then. It took me forever just to walk in there. So I get there and he puts me on the machine and takes a couple x-rays. And I said, okay, I'll see you. When do I know the results? I said, you guys going to call me when I'm at home or whatever. And he goes, oh, you're not leaving. And I go, wait, what do you mean I'm not leaving? He goes, I'm no doctor. He said, but I know what blood clots look like. And you got 3 in each lung. And you have 3 in both legs. And I have no idea what blood clots are. And I go, well, so is that a bad thing? Or are you going to give me a shot so I can, call it a day? And he goes, yeah, you're not leaving here for at least a week probably. And so I can't call her because they've taken me into the back room and hooked me up with all the medicine to thin out my blood and things like that. So I'm out for a week?
Yeah, he was there for a week, and his mom and brother came down, and so, we finally get him home, and now he's lifelong.
I get the
medicine for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So
we're there for a year, and I lose so I don't have any work.
So you get injured, you get ill, you're on the brink of death because you basically, in medical terms, we say you had a pulmonary embolism
Yes.
and blood clots in your legs that could have moved.
Well, this one right here was so close. They said if this one would have moved, you would have died.
Oh,
my goodness.
You would have kept on walking, you would have been done.
Yeah.
And then you guys, you don't have a job.
No.
So you lose your job.
It was just about that time. That's when they had to make the decision that they couldn't bring me back.
Wow.
So luckily, Renee had been keeping in touch with the people at Army Navy Academy. So I'm going at all these interviews and nobody's hiring. They kept telling me, no, we're not right. We got to let people go. And so,
so I call. I go, hey, do you guys have any openings? And they're like, yes, we do. Bobby's old job, the teacher didn't work out, so his job is available.
Oh, wow.
So we pack up again.
My goodness.
Go back to
Move
California.
back to California. And so, 4 kids, we're moving back. Each time we just kept getting less and less furniture. And so we moved back to California. We're in an apartment, and, it's just life,
So we're talking about an exciting moment buying a home.
Yeah.
And then tragedy.
Yes.
And then, okay, let's regroup. Let's build it back up.
Yeah.
Let's jump in the car. Let's head to Texas.
Yeah.
Everything's going great.
Yeah.
Yep.
And boom, here we go again. Now we're hit with something else.
Yeah.
Okay, so, wow. So,
and we're still smiling.
I know, right?
And this is only in the first 9 years of your marriage, so...
for 10. 9, 10 years. Yeah.
And usually most couples are like, the first 7 years of their marriage, they're just getting to know each other and having those relationship battles. But you guys didn't even really have an opportunity to really focus on your relationship because you were constantly doing a Batman and Robin thing where you're, fighting battles out there together that are kind of external outside of your relationship.
Yeah.
Now, we would love for you to use a Marvel, maybe some X-Men that we.
Well, there's no couple, and there's no.
There aren't.
Well,
Batman and Robin is.
I love Batman. It's just not.
but
Okay. So, but when you guys are fighting these battles,
Yes.
You're like Wonder Twins activated.
Exactly. Exactly.
That might be even worse, but okay.
I'm just flirting.
I know. You throw a He-Man in there, and then
I know.
yeah.
He-Man, She-Ra, we
She-Ra,
can do it.
yeah, we can do that.
absolutely.
I was like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So
Again, that's DC. So yeah.
I mean, like Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
You know, when they're fighting out and they're, fighting crime, they go home and they're not like talking about what happened. Like, hey, can you imagine what we just did? That was so crazy, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, siren goes off, next crime, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's fight that next battle, fist bump, and you're out.
Yeah.
That's kind of like you guys were just fighting battles.
I felt like my brain was always on. I was always the one, like, I brought up, Texas, and it was just always like me, always thinking, always trying to make a plan, always trying to, I worked several jobs when I was in Texas trying to, make things, because he was a sub. So if he didn't work, he didn't get paid. So I was like, a couple jobs here, a couple jobs there, taking care of the kids, came back, same thing. I was working like 5 jobs at one time, 20 hours a day.
Yeah, grinding for the family.
Grinding for the family. And he was basketball coach and, teacher. So basketball started kind of consuming his life at this time, and then our son was playing basketball, the oldest. And, when Bobby gets obsessed with something, he like dives head first in it, basketball.
Like your dad reading books about basketball.
Yeah. I mean, he's studying film. He's watching at clips. He's trying to reinvent, his read and react offense. And I just was like, my gosh, it was consuming him, basketball. And I was the one doing all the work, working 20 hours a day. And so, at some point I started kind of resenting him, like, I'm the one out here doing everything and trying to always have a master plan. And you're my husband. You should be pulling the weight and making sure we're okay. So I was like, kind of started resenting him a little bit.
This is when you came back to California?
When we came back to California, and this was like a couple of years after, and, we're established, we got work, and he's back to school.
And that's the key, because before that, we were always fighting something. And then we had a sense of stability. We knew what was going to happen. And, I'm coaching basketball, I'm teaching, she's working. But before that, we were always trying to, figure out what's going to happen next and how to make it work and our kids, Well, when we moved back, we got a stability. It was basically, we weren't going anywhere. I mean, we were much more established than we had been. It wasn't as chaotic as we were. Yeah. The kids were already in school, so we knew where they were. We didn't have to worry about anything else. They were healthy. Things were working out. Our parents had, passed, so it's just my mom now. And so my brother and my mom were living together. So we had a sense of stability, but that's when it started. For us in our marriage, we started realizing the differences. And like she said, I'm doing all this, and here I am focused on, teaching and coaching and trying to build something with that. And she was all on board for that. She wasn't against it.
Oh yeah,
but also because our son was also, he saw himself playing and doing all these things. So, but it really became more obvious to us as we started talking. We started disconnecting because we didn't have to disconnect before, because we were always on the same page. Like, what needs to be done to make sure we get through this battle? Well, then the battle became about us, and which we hadn't done for the first 10 years. We hadn't had that discussion about what do you want, what is best for us as we move forward. It seems like I'm doing more of the work than you are. And I'm feeling like I'm doing tons of work, but I'm not doing it for our family. I'm doing it for basketball. An extended family. Our family becomes extended. I got kids living in our house. We have things that we're doing. We're having kids at our home. We're having dinners for them, and we're doing all these things.
I'm traveling with the basketball team.
Yeah, she's cooking for the basketball team, washing for the game. She's filming for the basketball game. Our kids are involved. They're keeping score. So our family became more obsessed about that, but that became the disconnect.
Because I got tired after a certain while. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go any more games. Because Christopher, by this time, was about ready to graduate. COVID hit, and I'm like, I don't want to go to any more games. The kids were at this point, because if I went, they went. they were like, we don't want to go anymore.
Yeah, I remember seeing your kids at all the games.
Every single, from birth. I mean, that was,
The strollers in.
Strollers and
Yeah.
everything.
Three
Girls
strollers in.
cheering on
Yeah.
the side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we went
Tossing the football to
everywhere.
each other and they got older.
Yeah. And it was just like, he was so focused on basketball and trying to build a program, and he would do all the work for basketball, reinventing himself and doing all these wonderful things. Then when I stopped going, I was like, what about me? And I started kind of resenting him. And, we talked about it some, and he would try to change, and then it didn't. So finally, right after Christopher graduated, and it was probably about 2 years after he graduated, I was like, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What do you want to do? Because basketball is not bringing you any more money in. Now we're going to have 3 kids in college. Okay. So we got to start thinking about, what are you going to do to get these 3 kids through college? I said, because I've worked my 5 jobs and I'm tired. I'm tired of having the grand master plan. It's your turn. I want to relinquish this to you now.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? And he looked at me and was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. And then I thought about it, and I realized I didn't want to coach anymore.
Yeah.
And that had been part of my life for like 30 years. And then, but I knew that change had come when my son graduated. And I realized I had coached up until that, because if he hadn't, I don't think I would have continued coaching if he wasn't into basketball. He was into it. He loved it. And I wanted to coach with it. I mean, the greatest feeling in the world is to coach your son in anything. It doesn't matter what sport it is, to be a part of their growth. And you experience him. And I rode to the school together. We're talking about things for 4 years straight.
Basketball.
And life in general too. It wasn't just basketball. That was the beauty of it. It's just,
That was making you
part.
happy.
it was, but there was but I wasn't thinking, because in many ways I had taken her for granted. By that time, it was just like, she had already said, okay, I'm on board. Well, then when someone says they're on board, your expectation is that you're on board for everything. And that's not fair. And I didn't realize it at the time, because I was still focused on, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this. How can we get better? How can I be better for them?
Yeah.
And
He's doing all these transformational stuff. And
podcasts and listen to all this
I'm
other
gonna
stuff.
transform my basketball, and I'm going to be a better person for basketball. Well, what about, being a better person for me?
But you guys had that discussion?
Well, we finally did.
Yeah, it was a hard one.
It wasn't a nice one.
Yeah.
Because
No, it
at that
wasn't.
point I was done. I told him, I said, I was like, if you don't change, then I'm done. I can't, I don't want to, this is not how I want to be. I'm tired.
Right.
I have done so much, and I've given, and I feel like I'm now being neglected,
Right.
and I said, so what are you going to do to transform yourself to make this work? I said, because we've been through a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? And so,
So I said, I don't want to coach anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had to say, okay, well, what am I going to do? And,
So you guys start talking about
other things. Well, what do I like to do? I like to teach. I like to tutor. I like to mentor.
you're so good
But
at it.
I became really passionate about financial literacy. Also, I teach a class at school, and I started a class for that, and it became a big passion of mine. I said, well, let's start a business that we're doing all these things. And she's a wonderful woman. So she goes, well, you don't have to leave basketball. She goes, but coaching the way you're doing it is not productive for it anymore. So we still can do the basketball part. And I can still be it, because I still love it. I still love the game, but I didn't want to coach anymore. It was because of the challenge, not the challenge, the ultimatum. Basically, she came up with. Where really, I was feeling that before. After Chris graduated, I really didn't have the passion. I said, what am I also going to do, kind of thing. But it was like when she came out and said, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Yeah.
I knew what that meant. And I said, I don't want to do this any either. It wasn't, she didn't force me. That was the beauty of it. I had already figured out that I didn't want to do it. I just needed someone to voice it.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you, we could sit here and
This is why we talk
all
for 4
day.
hours all
I
the
tell you,
time.
we
It's,
love,
Yeah.
but we love having conversations with you guys.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that we get to share this and your relationship with so many others. But something that we want to ask, and we always ask our couples when we have these conversations. First off, did you write your vows, or did you do the traditional vows when you got married? And whichever one, is there something that you would change in your vows? Being married for as long as you've been married and how well you know each other, what would you change in your vows today?
Well, I rewrote them, and he forgot his. I did not forget mine. I just want to say
Okay.
that.
All right. That's unnecessary. but all
So
right.
I wrote them, and my thing was, the big thing was to live with, to laugh with, to love. And but I guess life is full of commas in our life. So I would have to say that communication has what got us through.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was not for communication, we would not be here right now. That's
Right.
one thing that we've always done, is talked about everything.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the ugly, and the uncomfortable.
But you guys also compromise and you sacrifice
100%.
Yeah.
a lot
100%.
for the external
Yes.
chaos, but also at the
Yes.
end, not the end, but when you had a
25 years later.
change. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's just communication, really, and just being able to compromise and to be able to bob and weave. I wish I would have put, you got to bob, you got to weave, because, you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So you have to be flexible.
So you're in full support of him still, having something to do with basketball, incorporating that into a business. And now you guys have created Achievement in Motion.
Yes.
Which, would you explain what that is briefly?
Yeah, so it's a tutoring, mentoring, financial literacy nonprofit organization that reaches out to young people to help them in any endeavors when it comes to their studies. And the mentoring part comes with in the tutoring aspect also, but we also like to involve the community in different ways. And one of them is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament that we would like to have at Army Navy Academy, and have that be part of something that gets us kickstarted in our endeavor. But we love working with the youth. I've been doing it for, like I said, 25 plus years, and she's been helping out in that endeavor also. And she has some of the greatest ideas. So it helps out so much when we're going back and forth, and for her, the way her mind works and everything else. It really, I have a tattoo. It's just yin and yang. We are very much a yin and yang.
Yes.
Yes.
And one of the things that, the things you asked about, would I change anything in our vows? One of the things that I would change is let's enjoy the process and not worry about the outcome, because we've been through a lot of process.
Yes.
Enjoying the moments that we've had together going through that is something that I probably would have added. Had I known
Right.
that what was going to come forward after our getting married, I said, well, let's make sure we enjoy it. And we have.
Yep.
It's been hard, but we smiled more and laughed more than anything else.
I love
Like Jim
that.
Carrey says, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
Yes. And I wouldn't want to do this journey with anybody else,
Yeah.
Well, maybe
I don't think
LL.
anybody else would be able to do this journey with me, because,
LL might have.
I was going to say, should we ask LL?
I know, LL
Yeah.
probably might. He might have put his hand up.
Call me.
Well, I gotta say, as we wrap this episode up, I don't think we've had a couple yet that has not mentioned communication as what they would change or add to their vows. But I'd like to, in honor of Natalie and her tapping into my nerd world, coin
I got
you
one last.
the dynamic duo.
Yes.
You guys are making it happen.
And you guys have amazing children. They
Yes,
all
do.
turned out
We love them.
beautifully.
Yes.
Beyond beautifully.
They
the
are
most
amazing.
respectful children.
Especially when they're sleeping.
Oh, that's always.
I
That's
enjoy them
always.
most, yeah.
I love them no matter what, guys.
Not so much.
So we want to say thank you to Renee and Bobby for being our guests today on Couples Unfiltered. You can find out more about this fantastic couple. Email us at couplesunfiltered333@gmail.com if you want to know more and we can reach out to you. Please continue to listen, follow, and subscribe to Couples Unfiltered wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you as always for just spending this moment with us. And really enjoyed this conversation. So
Thank you.
And
for
if you
having
want to find out more about Achievement in Motion, you can
Yes.
go to achievementinmotion.org
Yes.
and get information. You can also email us or contact us on our website,
Yeah, absolutely.
couplesandchilter.com.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you.